Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about a subject that lies at the intersection of history, memory, and creativity, the relevance of monuments and their connection to contemporary art. Monuments are, by design, markers of collective memory. To turn to Stuart Hall's reflections, collective memory is not a fixed or objective truth, but a site of contestation. A site shaped by power dynamics and shifting historical narratives. As our collective memory is examined and reconsidered, we must consider the role of the monument as a site of contestation. Monuments preserve and communicate something of significance, a moment in time, an individual, or an idea to future generations. As a Mexican-American immigrant living in the UK for the last 15 years, I am aware that the bulk of the collective history that monuments encapsulate is from the perspective of the colonizer. I often think of monuments as placeholders. The monument is their flex when the colonizer is no longer present. Consider the impact of Mount Rushmore in the Dakota Plains of North America. The Dakota Plains are populated mostly by the Dakota people, which consists of several tribal nations. The carving, in and of itself, the defacing of the natural rock formations, can be read as blasphemous. The history of the indigenous of the Americas, Africa, Asia, and Australia are not accurately represented in the majority of monuments, which brings me back to them being sites of contestation. Right now is a time to consider what we put in those spaces. We have the opportunity to build a critical dialogue regarding the impact of their existence and/or removal. As an artist, I interrogate, I reimagine, and I subvert the traditional narratives. This interrogation includes the monument. Through our work, we challenge people to think critically about the ways we commemorate and represent our collective pasts, while also making space for our narratives that have long been silenced. Artists whose work exemplifies the power of contemporary art to engage with the monumental include Hugh Locke, Pedro Reyes, Teresa Margolles, Tasha Balala Self, and Laura Aguilar. Locke's practice is deeply invested in exploring themes of colonialism, power, and historical memory through his reinterpretations of statues, plaques, and ceremonial objects. By transforming these symbols of authority, he disrupts their intended narratives and invites us to reflect on their broader implications. These are universal conversations. In Mexico, Pedro Reyes and Teresa Margolles engage with the legacy of violence and colonialism through their reinterpretations of the monumental form. Reyes studied architecture. His practice incorporates current social events to create living monuments. For example, the Palas por Pistolas, Reyes collects and transforms decommissioned guns into shovels. Then these shovels are used to plant trees, creating living monuments. This ongoing work transforms symbols of destruction into tools of renewal and growth, leaving a monument as a space for reflection and healing. Teresa Margolles, born in Mexico, studied forensic sciences and uses her academic knowledge in her art practice to create monuments within existing structures, the morgues of Mexico. Margolles addresses systemic violence while using materials from sites of conflict. These works remind us that monuments can be more than commemorative. Like Reyes's planting of trees, monuments can be spaces of healing and resistance. Right now, her most recent work is on the fourth plinth in Trafalgar Square, giving voice to the transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people. Finally, I asked you to consider the work of two U.S.-born artists, Tasha Bilala Self and Laura Aguilar. Tasha Bilala Self's large-scale mixed media figures celebrate Black womanhood in all its tender complexity. Self challenges the exclusion of Black bodies from the monumental tradition. Her work, Seated, installed in Bexhill-on-Sea in 2023, addresses this deficiency. Seated offers a dynamic and deeply personal assertion of presence and agency. Aguilar used the medium of photography, and she also used her body as a monument. In particular, I am referring to her Nature Self-Portrait series, where she placed her brown, queer body within vast landscapes of the western United States. These photos represent a beauty and connectedness to the natural within. By use of her own body, the monument now becomes a space of vulnerability and represents the fragility of the human experience. Aguilar reclaimed spaces and challenges the traditional ideals of monumentality. Her work spoke to the resilience, visibility, and endurance of bodies that have historically been marginalized, transforming the landscape itself into a site of radical self-affirmation. These examples offer a multitude of considerations in what monuments serve today. While there is a broader shift in how we think about monuments, temporary installations, participatory art projects, and ephemeral monuments challenge the traditional notion of permanence in favor of something more fluid and responsive. This shift aligns with my values as an artist, a mother, and educator. I prioritize process, dialogue, and critical engagement over static forms. As we navigate an increasingly globalized and interconnected world, the conversation around monuments and contemporary art reminds us of the importance of representation and inclusivity. Art allows us to question who gets to decide what is remembered and what is forgotten. It invites us to deconstruct the dominant narratives that have shaped our societies and to imagine new possibilities for collective memory. Monuments, once considered untouchable and timeless, are now being redefined as dynamic and contested spaces. But that interrogation will not happen if the contemporary art world and educational institutions do not broaden their participants to include the brown, the Black, the queer, the poor, the female, and the gender nonconforming. We disrupt, reimagine, and inspire, and must be at the forefront of this transformation. Monuments are not just about the past. They are about the present and the future. They are mirrors reflecting who we are, who we aspire to be. Thank you.